Oh, hey there. I kind of disappeared there for a little bit. It's springtime. I'm way behind. Got to get some brakes on the car to be able to drive it around. To date, I've done some brake lines a little bit. I did the pedal box. I changed to a boosterless master cylinder. Everything's gone really well, but now it's time to get some different calipers and do the big brake upgrade. This is by no means the first time this has been done. This is an upgrade that is common in the community. In fact, I've pretty much just mirrored everything that's done on one of the tech articles on the FAQ. All I'm going to do is show you some of the parts you got to get. I'm going to talk about how it's pretty much a straight bolt-on, but I'm going to be doing it a little bit differently to be able to get it to fit a little bit better, but it can just bolt on. So yeah, we'll walk through the parts, the differences between the standard 2002 brake setup and what we're doing with the Volvo. And we'll get into that right now. So obviously the biggest difference we're getting into is a bigger vented rotor. Let's move this out of the way. We'll talk about that in a second. But the vented rotor is from a 1977 320. It's slightly bigger diameter, it's vented obviously, same bolt pattern, and it's going to fit the car. So that's the big change. This is what we're trying to get here with the better heat dissipation, more mechanical advantage on the diameter. This is what we're trying to get on the car. The other part is this caliper. So this caliper itself is from a 1992, or in that era, 1992 Volvo 240. Now, there's two different types of calipers you can get. There's one with ABS, which is this caliper, and there's one without ABS. So the important thing to remember is if you're gonna do two lines to your caliper, as in the standard setup, you want the caliper without the ABS, and you get two ports here. That's the difference. So you get two input feeds to have that redundant brake line. I'm switching over to a single line, so I got the caliper with ABS. And with ABS, you get a single feed because they didn't want to have that dual line system on the ABS system. So that's what I got. So these calipers are what you're looking for. The other critical part of this upgrade is the hub. And you need the hub from a 1983 BMW 320i. And that's what's going to allow you to hit your spindle on the regular 2002 strut and mount this rotor and make everything work. Pretty much everything else is the same bolt pattern. It mostly bolts up. I'll talk about the differences there a little bit. So that's the hub. So why do you need to change the hub? And this is the fundamental difference. If you're gonna go buy all these parts and you're like me, you're like, what? I can't really visualize in my head what it is. Well, this is it. The main difference between the setup on the 77 320 and the 83 320i, wherever you're getting these parts from, is that you have a through mounting system for the rotor on the hub. So you need to get your modern style BMW lug because it's going to mount the rotor onto the hub. So when we look at the original rotor hub system on the 2002, it almost looks integrated. It almost looks like one built-in thing where the hub is built into the rotor. It's not quite. If you look in there, I'm not sure if you can see, but you can see some bolts that bolt the rotor from the back face onto the hub. So if you look on this side, this is the hub mounted onto the rotor, and there are two units. So you have a stud coming out, and you use a lug nut to attach the wheel to that. And the rotor itself is attached to the hub, and separately the wheel is attached to the hub, and the bearing goes in there. So that's what you get on this this 2002 rotor, and it's you know, very skinny, non-vented, nice and light, but we all know, or I don't know, maybe not, that the vented rotor is going to do much better work. So now this is more typical, kind of more of a modern setup. This is the hub from the 83, and it's going to go through the rotor like so. You get a little hex bolt to line this up right here, and then your lug goes through the wheel and holds the wheel and the rotor to the hub, same thing. So a bit of a different style there, and that's how you get it. That's why you need the different hub. Now, the cool thing is, you buy your wheel bearing kit. Oops, shouldn't do that. And it's the same as the 2002. So you're using the exact same part number for the 2002 that works for the hub of the 1983 320. So that's the hub differences. And basically, that should all slide on the spindle once you get all those parts. Let's talk about the calipers themselves. We got the bigger Volvo caliper and the smaller 2002 caliper. So right away you can see how much bigger the Volvo caliper is than the 2002. When you start looking at the pads, you get the Volvo pad and the 2002 pad. So the Volvo pad, you just buy the pad suitable for the caliper you bought. They're cheap, readily available, no problems getting them, which is nice. The one thing that's cool about this and why this works is the bolt pattern for the Volvo to the BMW is the exact same. So it mounts up using the same positions and same bolts and same hardware as on the 2002 as it came with. There is one difference though. When you mount these up, you're going to get a slight misalignment between the center line of the caliper and the center line of the rotor, and you're going to be a little bit inboard. So that means the caliper is sitting too far, outboard. The caliper is sitting too far out on the car, and it's not going to center your pads. So you can just grab some washers, I think it's about 70 thou, and push that caliper off the mounting face, and that will line it up. You just play with it to get it mostly centered and you're all set, and that makes it bolt on. Now, the other problem is radially, the caliper, ooh, shouldn't do this in the kitchen with brake fluid dripping everywhere. The caliper is going to sit too far inboard, outboard. So along the rotor, the stock BMW mounting makes this sit out this way. And that means your pads are not going to sit entirely on the face of the rotor. So what's that mean? It's about 2 millimeters, and your pad is going to hang out this way. So that means you don't use the whole pad, and you're going to have this little wedge on the pad that comes off. So that's okay, and I think a lot of people run it that way. You don't really notice it, I'm guessing, but I have 2 problems with that. One is that I'm running 13-inch wheels, and so I barely have clearance for this setup to fit in as it is. I would probably have to shave off a little bit on this face and a little bit on that face to fit it in if I were just bolting on. It almost fits, but it's too tight. Like I'm getting some touching. So if I shave this, I'd get a little 2 millimeters in it. But I'm gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get these machined. So what I'm gonna do is this hole, and I'll take this, I'll cover this in another video. I'm gonna get these machined oversized so that I can fit a sleeve in there that offsets this. And basically what I'm gonna do is change where these mounting holes are. I think some people have slotted those holes, and you can push the caliper inboard and it probably works just fine, or slot one of them and then you can rotate it in and get all the same changes you need. But I figure since I'm doing it, I'm gonna make a oversized hole on the center that I want, and then put a bushing in there that has a collar instead of using a washer. So use a nice bushing that's going to step that off the face and pull that away so my center line is good as well. So it'll be one little sleeve that fits in there. And again, I'll cover that off. I'm going to get these rebuilt. Depending on time, on how the machining is, I'm going to try to do this machining myself. But the clock is ticking, so that may change. No matter what, I'm going to try to cover that off in another video of what I do and how I did it with the rebuild. And then we'd be putting it on the car. So that's that. All the stuff will go in the car. I've test mounted this stuff up. Looks pretty cool. I've got my 13-inch rotors on, just barely fits. I got some cool new tires too. But I got like a couple weekends to get this done. And if you're like any car nut I know and you live in a seasonal environment, it's always crunch time about now to make sure your car's on the road. So get out there, get driving. I'll see you soon.